Hey guys, this is Vanessa Dyer, and I'm the Charlotte, North Carolina-based lifestyle blogger behind thecheekybean.com. With several successful years as a business owner, a first-time mom, and a deep passion for health and wellness, I'm here to share my honest, unfiltered advice on all things motherhood, relationships, travel, and more. So grab a coffee and join the conversation. This is the Cheeky Bean Podcast. Happy Wednesday, back with another episode. But you guys, there are only 2 episodes left of the Cheeky Bean Podcast for season 2. I am going to take a little bit of a break. The holidays get insane for me between work, the holidays, travel, family in and out of town. It is just madness. We are traveling for my best friend's birthday, so we're headed to Highlands, North Carolina mid-month. It is also my mom's birthday. I'm going to take her to Nobu down in Atlanta. She lives in Atlanta, and her and I had our first Nobu experience together back in New York when I was like 12 or 13 years old. So it is a little bit nostalgic. We're super excited. They just opened in Atlanta. So we are headed down there the first weekend in November. I have my own birthday in November. We are hosting Thanksgiving. And then, as you know, the influencer world, this is the Super Bowl of our year. November and December are just crazy, crazy, crazy with holiday content. It is one of my favorite times of year, so I am super excited. But with that, I am going to take a little bit of a break from the production of this podcast. We will come back full steam in January. And I would love to know who you want me to have on the podcast in January. I'd love to know if there are topics that you want me to discuss that I didn't cover this season, or if there's anything else you want me to do a deeper dive in. So go ahead and leave a comment on my most recent Instagram post at the Cheeky Bean Podcast and let me know what you want out of season 2. With that, let's talk about today's guest. So between the Joanna Gaines Empire home makeover YouTube channels and dreamy interior design TikTok and Reels, I know you've all seen them. I have a folder in my Instagram account where I save all of the home inspo. I think we've all definitely had somewhat of a crash course in curating a beautiful home, but your home still might not feel like it is perfect. It still might feel like it's missing that extra little something to tie everything in together. And that is where Holly enters the chat. Holly Romero is an interior designer and owner of Rosemary Mill Designs, which is a bespoke furniture company based right here in Charlotte. She was featured in Elevate Lifestyle's 2023 30 Under 30, and her successful business is gearing up to grow. In this episode, Holly is taking us behind the scenes of her business to share her best interior design tips, furniture thrifting hacks, and what's next for her business. With that, Holly Romero, welcome to the Cheeky Bean Podcast.
Thanks so much.
I know, I'm so excited you're here. So I want to kick it off. You started your furniture business in the middle of 2020, correct?
Yes, right when the pandemic started, right when the stay-at-home order was like first put into effect. That's when I started.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, I know, right? That's ideal.
So can you tell us about how your business evolved and what was it like starting in the middle of a pandemic?
I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise because I feel like if you start your business, in a hard time like that, when you're able to get out of it, everything just flows so much smoother. I originally started because, we had just started staying at home and everybody was looking for design projects and like home reno stuff at that time. So I was like, I want to find a dresser for my son's room, but I wanted it to be so specific. I wanted it navy with like rope handles, and everything I looked up online was insanely overpriced.
Yeah.
And stuff would take 6 months to ship. And I was like, that's not even worth it. So then my husband was kind of the one that originally thought of it. And he was like, well, you're creative and we have the resources because he owns a construction company. So he was like, why don't you just refinish one?
Yeah.
And I always shopped on Marketplace on Facebook and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I could try that. I didn't really have a plan to sell anything. But then when it turned out good, I was like, well, this could be a cool business.
Yeah.
Because at the time I was staying home with my daughter and I just kind of wasn't really sure what I wanted to do work-wise. So yeah, it really just took off from there. And, at first it was pretty difficult because I was with both our kids all day. Our son was in first grade and our daughter was like barely a toddler. And it was hectic to say the least because I was pretty much working, after they went to bed till midnight, 1 a.m. every single day and really only taking the weekends off. So, when things picked back up and, they got into preschool and back to school and everything, it was really, a lot easier for me to like just go full speed at that point.
Yeah. So you were basically building these pieces in your garage?
No, so I refinish vintage and antique pieces.
Okay.
So I don't know anything about building pieces. I mean, maybe way in the future, but no, I was basically just sourcing everything, from antique depots and marketplace and estate sales and that kind of stuff, and then just designing them and giving them new life, basically.
What do you think the turning point was for your career? Like, you start this business, you're in the middle of the pandemic, you start with, the idea that it was just for your son's room. So how did you get your name out there, and how did you end up kind of building the business the way that you did?
I mean, I never once have advertised. I've never, put my name out there like that. It just kind of took off word of mouth. And I think it helped that everybody was staying at home at the time because people were just itching for something to do. And, they were talking to their friends or their neighbors would see, and it really took off. But yeah, no, I think really what people were drawn to initially was just the convenience of it, especially during the pandemic. You couldn't get anything shipped to you.
Oh, I know.
Quickly.
I know. We always joke around. We bought our house March of 2020. And we always joke around that people thought that we could afford the house, but not the furniture inside of it, because it took we started over from scratch, and it took so long for the furniture to actually get to us that we were living in this house with
nothing in it.
Nothing in it. It was literally, I would be in the kitchen doing Instagram stories, and it was like echoing because there was no furniture in there.
Yeah.
And it was really frustrating, but it was kind of the nature of the game in 2020. You kind of didn't have a choice. There was nothing you could do about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a bed that we ordered from Four Hands, which is based out of Italy. And we had ordered it, and a year later, it was literally still sitting in a shipping container it had shipped from Italy, so wherever it had arrived, but there was no staff to open the doors on the shipping container to offload it. So it just sat in there for months. And then I'm like, well, it's hot. Is my furniture.
Yeah, it's going to get warped.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It was crazy. I'm like, how can you not find anybody to literally offload this thing out of the container, you know?
No, it was wild. And I think that's really just, bad timing, but good timing. Because
great timing for you.
Am I going to order some particle board thing, from IKEA, and it's going to take forever to arrive, or I can get something solid wood, well made and delivered next week and customized.
Right. Yeah.
So I think I really just was lucky to find a hole in the market.
Yeah, no doubt. That kind of leads me to my next question too. There's so much cheaply made furniture out there that I feel like it can be challenging to find high quality pieces that don't break the bank. Are there any brands that you trust for brand new furniture pieces, or do you think that antique is truly the way to go?
So I don't think it really depends so much on the brand, because a lot of popular brands, Restoration Hardware, West Elm, whatever, they do have quality pieces, but also sometimes there are, MDF and particle board things that they sell as well. So I think it's more important not to look at the brand, but look at the quality of the furniture. And I'm kind of biased, but I think antique is the way to go because it was just made so differently back then.
I hear that about a lot of things, not just furniture, but we had an issue with our AC recently, and the guy came out and he was like, this is a brand new house. What's happening shouldn't be happening, but I see it all day, every day with these new homes. And he's like, they just don't make AC units the way that they used to anymore. And I feel like furniture is the same way.
Yeah. It's designed, sometimes it's just designed to last you a couple years, and then you scuff it and break it when you're moving. You got to get a new one, So I have pieces all the time, especially client customized pieces that they've had in their family since the 1800s.
Wow.
And they're still
really
just
special.
as sturdy. Yeah.
I feel like too with antique furniture, it's always solid wood, not engineered and manufactured wood.
Yeah.
Which is really special, but there are so many trends going on right now in terms of mixing new and old. Give us your thoughts on that. How are you repurposing these antique pieces that may not kind of fit into, let's say, the grand millennial trend?
Yeah.
So how do you take them and turn them into something a little bit more modern, but keeping the bones of the furniture?
So I think a lot of it really goes down to keeping it original to the time period it came from. Sometimes I'll have a mid-century modern piece from, let's say, the 50s, 60s, to look at the color palettes that would have been used back then, or just the general design style, because it's not like furniture, has traditionally been painted in all these bright colors, but just to look at the general design elements from that time. For example, like I said, mid-century pieces, those, in homes and just the decor and the general vibe of that time was very fall colors.
Yes. Like the dark woods and the chestnut.
And very orange and auburn and those kind of colors. So I've found that if you have a piece from a specific time period, to think about what were the colors of the walls and the decor in homes of that time period and to translate it onto a piece.
Okay.
So I think it's cool. Sometimes I've had, clients want a piece from, 50 plus years ago, but in like a bright lacquered pink or, some kind of crazy emerald high shine, and that's always fun depending on your style. But I found that the real, if I'm just designing a piece based on what I think is going to sell and what looks nice, I design it around the time period it's from.
Very cool. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, you don't really think about it. And then, you look at something from 100 years ago and to think of it painted like a chalk white with farmhouse handles and, stuff like that, it might not look as good. But then, you look at historic colors and what kind of hardware materials were used back then and kind of infuse it. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Give us some tips on thrifting. So that's something that I am not good at all. I wouldn't even know where to start. But when I looked at your Instagram page, I mean, you have such beautiful pieces that I'm like, oh my God, that would look so good in my house. But I would have no idea where to kind of look for those pieces to even start.
Yeah.
So for someone like me who has no experience, what would your advice be to them in terms of thrifting?
I would say definitely Facebook Marketplace is like the number one.
Yeah.
That's where I find probably 90% of my pieces, and people either just don't know what they have or they don't care. Not everybody's into design or old pieces, and they just don't really see how it could look different. The handles are falling off, whatever. So I'm able to get very good deals on there. But I would say for thrifting in general, Habitat for Humanity, especially on Wendover Road, that's like my favorite place. Also, the Antique Depot, Gibson Mill in Concord is very cool.
Okay.
Any like the Sleepy Poet, any of those like depot type places, those are awesome. And not just for furniture. I mean, they have like weird, cool antique stuff. Like we went to the Antique Depot in Concord and I ended up getting some magazines from the 1800s.
Like, that's super cool.
Yeah, no, it's just like random
You never know what
stuff.
you're going to find. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say for furniture and estate sales, that's always good. So it really just depends if you're looking for something already ready to put in your house. I would say, there are a lot of places in Charlotte. I don't really frequent them because I don't need pieces that are already restored and painted and stuff. But Sleepy Poet is number one for that, in my opinion. But if you're just looking for something that's like kind of trashed or like needs a lot of love, Marketplace is the way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. How do you help clients kind of see the vision? I know a lot of people are very visual. And so if someone maybe is working on a budget and they really want, let's just say a console, for example, but they just can't envision what it's going to look like when it's repurposed, how do you help them see that vision?
I would say that's like 90% of my clientele. They're like, I do not know where to start. Like, I need help from the get-go. I say typically what I do is ask them to send me some photos or videos of their space that it's going to go in, and send me any like inspiration photos. It doesn't have to look like the exact piece, but just anything with that general vibe, from Pinterest, whatever, so I can get an idea of their personal style. And then once I see their space, a lot of times people know what color walls they have, and, they're very like, I have Sherwin-Williams, blah, blah, blah on this wall, and in my kitchen, this. So I'm able to create a color palette of what colors I think, in my opinion, would look nice. And then, that gives them something to jump off of to say like, oh, wait, maybe I would do a navy. And then I say, okay, well, would you want it a little bit warmer, cooler? I think based on your wall over here and your curtains that we should go, in this direction. And so we just kind of work together like that. And some clients come to me and they're like, I want it to be this exact shade, this sheen, this hardware. And I'm like, okay.
Like they know exactly
that makes my
what
job
they want.
easy. Yeah. But then I have, a ton of clients that are like, I do not know where to start.
Yeah. Do you help people source pieces? Like for somebody who's like, I don't know where to start, but I know that I want to work with you. And like, here's my vision or here's the idea that I have. Will you actually go out and source the piece for them and say, this is what I think would look good in your space? Or do they typically already have a piece?
So I would say with, when I first started and I had no custom clients and I was really just like getting my name out there, I would have pieces be like, hey, or clients be like, hey, if you could find me a piece that's 70 inches long and, kind of looks like this. I had way more time and availability to be like, yeah, I'll look out for you. But I have people at least 2-3 times a day reach out like, hey, I'm kind of in the market for this sort of thing. And I'm like, as much as I'd love to just completely source you a piece, I always tell clients, you go out and you find something you like at an antique place or on Marketplace, whatever, send it my way, and then I can quote you and work with you from there. But I just don't, I would be stretching myself so thin trying to be like, what about this one? What about this one?
Right.
To so many different people.
Yeah.
But
and that makes sense. Like you can't guarantee that they're going to work with you even if you are spending all that time on, doing that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then sometimes it's like people will love the look of something, but then they're like, oh, but I got to get home and measure. I don't know if it's going to fit. So I do prefer, and it's better for them too, because they know what they like in their mind. So if they go somewhere and they're like, hey, I'm thinking of getting this at, Sleepy Poet, can you quote me? And then we'll pick it up for them and customize it. But yeah, no, I wish I could. But it's just too many.
What do the typical price ranges run for a piece through you?
So it really depends. I would say the most, just like average piece would probably be $350 to $400.
Okay.
But it does depend on like the rarity of it. For example, bamboo furniture that I'm never able to find. So when I do, obviously I price it a little bit higher because it typically costs me more to buy. And also there's like an incredible demand for it.
Right.
Or, a piece that's gigantic, or I spent a lot more money buying it originally. I might price it a little higher up to like $500, but I don't think I've ever had anything more than that.
Okay.
So,
it's super fair.
Yeah.
In comparison to going out and buying something from a Crate and Barrel or a CB2, you're looking at,
it's insane.
$1,700 for a console table. And then you got to pay $250, $300 for shipping plus tax, plus, furniture, it's a crazy industry.
No, for sure. For example, I just had a custom client a few weeks ago, and I think I was telling you when we met for coffee, she wanted a grass cloth finish, like a faux grass cloth. And she was trying to recreate a console from Serena and Lily. And she sent it to me, and she's like, I want it to look exactly like this one. We were able to do like a perfect dupe, but the original one was $2,700.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like it really was not big at all.
Yeah.
And I was able to do it for her for a few hundred. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Was it a piece she already had, or did she go out and like find a piece that looked very similar in shape and bones?
I'm pretty sure that she already had it for a while.
Okay.
But she was like, hey, this looks really similar to this designer piece that I would love to put in place of it. And so we were able to just recreate it.
Yeah.
So it's fun for me too. I love art. I love being, creative. And so to customize something like that, especially to create a dupe of something, that's extra fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You seem very passionate about it.
Yeah, I love it.
It's cool when you can integrate your job into something that you really enjoy doing, because then it doesn't really feel like work. I know that's the age-old quote of like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, but it really truly is. Yeah. Like that, it's still work, but at least you wake up and you're enjoying what you're doing every single day. And like you put a lot of passion and effort into something that you actually truly care about. Yeah, no, for sure. That definitely makes it easier. Like, I'm able to make my own schedule now. And, during the day, like I'm able to come here, do what I want. I'm pretty much taking the whole day off. But then there are nights where I'm like, oh my gosh, I've really got to finish this thing. Yes. And I stay up till 11, 12. Like, yep. I know exactly how that is. Yeah. Yeah. I'm in the exact same boat. Like this entire week, I think I've worked till 11:30 at night every night. And I'm not a night owl either. So I'm like, holy cow, but we're leaving next week. And that's just how it is. Like everything's got to get done before we go. And it's a trade-off. Like, no, it is. Sometimes, I can have the flexibility to go get a pedicure or whatever it may be. And other times I'm working till 11:30 at night. But that's the beauty of, that's the beauty of working for yourself. It's kind of an ebb and flow, and you can make your own schedule. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely. I would say that's like my number one. I mean, aside from just being able to be creative and customize things and work with people like that, that's my number one. I love my job thing.
Yes, the flexibility.
Yeah,
no, I totally get that. I want to talk about kind of the trend that's going around TikTok and social media on the DIY front. So there are a lot of people who want to flip furniture on their own, but when should someone put the paintbrush down and hire a professional like you?
I would say as long as you know what you're doing and you really research the correct way to do it, it will hold up. I don't think there's really a time that somebody has to, reach out to me. But at the same time, it is tricky to just have all those pieces at your disposal in your house if that's not something you typically do. Like I use a spray gun and, I have all these different things that I use, and I use a specific type of paint and a mechanical sander. And so typically that's not like stuff in your junk drawer.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously you can just source the correct things and have a paintbrush and go at it. And I've seen people do it just fine, but obviously it depends how it's going to be used. If you want it to be like a real showstopper type piece, and how long you want it to last and durability.
Okay.
But yeah, I've had multiple people reach out to me and say, if I just want to try it at home, what should I do? And I'm happy to tell them. I'm not really going to gatekeep my methods. But I mean, unless you have like a compressor and spray gun and stuff, it's a lot more time consuming and tricky for sure.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, most people do not just have that laying around in their garage. There's so many different design styles out there right now. I know we briefly touched on that earlier in the episode. But how would you describe your interior design style, and what would your advice be for those who maybe don't know what their style is? How can they figure it out?
So I would say us specifically, especially lately, have been leaning more toward like a updated colonial, old-timey, cozy sort of feel, but also with some modern upgrades, So I would say, honestly, in our own house, we're just kind of evolving all the time. Like, especially with the season in the fall, I'm more apt to want to get like cozier home decor and make it look a little bit more old timey. For example, our bedroom is painted black.
Because very cool.
Yeah. But I mean, that seems like daring and stuff. But in the past, in old houses and, stuff from a couple hundred years ago, they used a lot more color and were a lot more daring in design than we tend to think of.
Yes.
So I love old-timey vintage things like that. But I would say for anybody that's trying to find their signature style, I don't think it's really something you have to label per se. But I would say the number one thing I recommend clients to do, especially if they're just starting over with a blank room and they're like, I don't know where to begin. Number one, start with larger items.
Okay.
So rather than, I just moved in, I don't know what this room's going to look like. Find the largest item in the room, for example, the bed frame, the dining table, whatever.
Yeah.
Get that out of the way and design the smaller things around that. Because if you just have a room and you start collecting all these random, pieces of decor and art, it might look a little convoluted. But if you start from the bigger pieces of furniture, the more expensive things, I think that's the way to go. And also, I tend to tell people to go on Pinterest and not necessarily look for specific things they love, but just the overall vibe of a picture and save it and just continue to do that. And at the end, go through the whole list and say, what are the common denominators here? Because you're not even going to realize what you're saving necessarily. You could save all these things just because you like the feel of it. But then once you look over 100 pictures you've saved, you say, oh, so I do like dark walls.
Yes.
I do like this kind of tile, So that's an easy way to sort of figure out your subconscious, like what really
you're drawn
like.
to. Yeah, that's actually really good advice. I think people who don't know what their style is can do that and, you know, collect a mood board or go, you know, make a Pinterest folder and kind of, you realize once you pin the same things over and over and over that you definitely have the repetition of like common denominators in those folders.
Yeah, for sure. Because when people go on Pinterest, they're like, oh, but I got to find this exact bed frame that I like and pin, you know, stuff that looks exactly like that over and over. And I'm like, no, just pin. It could even be stuff that's not a picture of an interior of a house, just the mood, the vibe, whatever. And then
maybe the patterns. Yeah, that's really good advice. I feel like I have a split personality. My entire house is very tone on tone, monochromatic, but then I am so drawn. I always say I wish I had multiple homes for multiple different styles. Like I love Jonathan Adler and he's very like loud, a lot of bold jewel tone colors and pattern. And I'm like, I want a whole house that's like designed like Jonathan Adler's house. But then I also love
sometimes
my
you're
house.
not in the mood.
Yeah, exactly. Then I also love my house where it's, you know, it's very calming and serene and airy. So I don't know if I just have a split personality or like what.
No, I totally get it.
It's like, you know, you can't really make every room different because then the house doesn't feel like it flows very well. So
for sure.
I say that to Shane all the time. He was like, yeah, well, you can keep dreaming, babe.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll have 3 houses for your 3 different styles.
Right. Well, hey, you could always do the guest house like that.
I did actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Our mother-in-law suite has a lot of jewel tone green, which is very cool. Yeah. It's like green, black, white, and gray. So it still like matches the inside of the house fairly well. But it has like those pops of color. Yeah. And everyone that walks in there is like, wow, I love the green. And like the green's really a hit right now.
It is.
But I think the cool thing about having a house that is kind of monochromatic like that, you can add those punches of color in really easily by like swapping out pillows. And I've learned that, you know, just like swapping out our throws, swapping out the pillows. Like it's really easy.
Touches.
Yeah. And you can reupholster things so easily nowadays too. You know, if I wanted to take my white chairs and make them a green like that, like you can just take them to get reupholstered because there's nothing wrong with the actual chair.
Yeah, no, people don't realize the smallest things can make the hugest difference, especially, you know, our drapery, you know, stuff that's easily changed out. You can change the whole vibe of the room like that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. What would your tips be for breathing new life into old pieces?
Yeah, I would typically just, like I said, look at the time period that something came from and also just look at where it's going and blend the two together.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people also underestimate the power of hardware on something. And people are like, can you change that out? And I'm like, oh, yeah, there's so many options.
Yeah.
I mean, even just on Amazon, there's the funkiest stuff. You know, so like you were saying, just the smallest touches and color, it makes the world of difference. But yeah, I would say if you at home are like looking to refinish a piece of furniture or whatever, just, you know, the 3 pieces of advice I would say is number 1, the Pinterest board thing, you know, just look for what your general vibe is. Think about the time period that the piece came from and think about, you know, your specific room. A lot of it also has to do with the amount of light that it gets in there. You know, how light you can make a piece, you know, stuff like that. So you got to all roll it into one, I think, to make it a successful transformation.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes to achieving a luxury feel for your home, but on a budget, what items would you say are worth the splurge and where can people get away with using less expensive items?
So I was thinking about that and I honestly could not come up with an answer because I don't think there's anything decor wise that has to be splurged on. I mean, even in our own house, I don't think we've splurged on a single piece because I'm always looking for stuff at the thrift store and, you know, on Marketplace and estate sales and everything. So I don't truly think that any furniture piece has to be a splurge because there's so many different places to find quality things for cheap now.
Right.
And people cannot tell a difference. And, you know, if you thrift something versus you buy it brand new, a lot of times the thrifted older pieces get the most attention anyway and are the more unique things. So, I mean, I would say unless there's just something that really lights your soul on fire in your house to do, you know, there's no reason to spend a lot at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you can really design an entire room on a very small budget. I would say the number one thing, though, is just patience.
Yes.
Because if you're looking for the perfect, sideboard or whatever, you're not necessarily going to find it overnight. That's the only thing. You've got to wait it out. And I've had clients on the hunt for, the perfect whatever for 2+ years. And then one day we're just like, there it is.
Yeah.
And then they snatch it up and the rest is history. So
yeah,
I think the one thing that really defines luxury design for me in a home is carefully curated pieces. So again, it's not going to happen. You're not going to walk right into the store and say, oh, I want that one.
right.
I mean, you might get lucky, but most of the time it's going to take you a while, and to just be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, when you guys first moved in, you didn't have a whole bunch of stuff. You just got to learn to live with it for a little bit. And then once it comes together, it's worth it.
Yes.
But I would say even with decor and art, it's best to not just, as tempting as it is, walk around Target or Home Goods and be like, that's so cute, I'm going to get that. Oh my gosh, that's $10, I'm going to get that. Because it comes off very manufactured and it's not so true to you. Mm-hmm. It's best to, pick up pieces when you're traveling that mean something to you, or to buy art from a local artist and have it commissioned, something like that, to where, it takes a little bit longer, at the end of the day, every single piece in your home is true to you.
Yes.
And your family's style.
Yeah. I love that advice, especially on art, because art is so specific to the person. And I love finding local artists, whether they're local to Charlotte or local to Birmingham. I found some really cool people, and just having them commission pieces that fit within your home, that are made specifically to your taste and what you're requesting. I think that is such a statement piece when you walk into somebody's house.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are oftentimes the pieces that people are like, what is that? Where did you get that from?
Yeah.
Like us, we love to go to Charleston multiple times a year. And one time we bought a restored ceiling tile from a church that was a few hundred years old. Mm-hmm. And that hangs in our house. And so it's more like, what is that? But then you turn it around and it says the history of it, what church it came from, what year, and stuff neat. Like that is really special to me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tempting to go into Target and just be eyeing the manufactured art that there's, they're in everybody's house. But at the end of the day, it's way more worth it to source pieces that you just fall in love with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Charlotte is obviously, North Carolina, I should say, is obviously the furniture mecca of the country. A lot of the furniture that people get is built here locally, which is super cool. But what I learned when we were going through the interior design process was I had this vision for what I wanted, but there weren't pieces that we could buy that matched that vision. And honestly, a lot of that vision came from Pinterest. I'd seen somewhere along the line, something on Pinterest where I was like, oh, I really like that. I would love to have that as a staple piece, but then it's not around anymore.
Right.
And so I do think one of the things that's so beneficial about working with an interior designer was I was able to articulate what I was looking for to the interior designer, and they had all these contacts where we could have it custom made from a local business. And some of them were local to Atlanta. We couldn't find somebody here in Charlotte, but they trucked it up here for me. Yeah. And so it's really cool because a lot of times people will ask on social media oh, where did you get this?
Yeah,
I'm
it's hard to say.
I had it made. It's a custom piece, which that did end up, it was brand new, but it ended up being a little bit pricier, but I got exactly what I wanted. And that's something that will carry over with us to everywhere. It's a piece that you can repurpose. I know furniture can also be specific to your home, but I made sure that the pieces we did custom are pieces that we can take with us to the next house and will fit in the decor anywhere. And they're also some of my favorite pieces.
No, exactly. And I think that's the thing, even what you brought up about cost, you got to think if you just got some random IKEA dresser or whatever, you're going to spend a couple $100. But then when it gets all messed up in a few years, you're going to go spend another couple $100.
Exactly.
Replacing it. But when you have such a special, timeless piece like that and you're going to keep it forever, it becomes worth it for the price.
Yes.
I think sometimes it's a little outrageous. I've seen stuff for $10,000+ and I'm like, man, it better be
I agree,
given to me directly from the queen or something. Because
no kidding. I know. I literally fell in love with this little stool. It's actually called the Thing stool. And I saw it somewhere on Pinterest in an inspiration image. And I was like, I want that stool. So I reverse imaged it, which I think is also a really good tip. Like you can reverse image anything on Google and figure out where it's from. So I reverse imaged it, figured out where it was from. And it's from this company called Connect with a K. So I think they're European.
Yeah.
And it is a $12,000 stool. It's a footstool. Like you're putting your feet on it. And I'm just like, what? Why is this $12,000?
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. But that is a piece that I would love to kind of take to somebody and be like, can we recreate this for maybe a quarter of the price?
Right. And that's, back to your question about, which stores are well-made pieces, and a lot of people will look at the price and be like, oh my gosh, that must be like really well made and well done. But
at the end of the day, you really don't know.
No, you don't. And a lot of the times they're charging for the prestige of it, and the allure and the brand name and whatever. But you can find the same exact quality, if not better, for way less, especially from a long time ago.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what the stool looks like now. I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, you'll have to look it up. It's called the Thing Stool from Connect, Konekt.
Huh.
And there is nothing else that comes up when you reverse image it as like a dupe.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like you would have to take it to somebody who makes custom furniture and say, can you recreate this? But it's definitely a staple piece. Like it's something that I saw in the picture and was like, wow, that's a really cool, like I've never seen anything look like that, which is to your point, probably why it's $12,000. You can't find anything else like it.
Yeah.
And it's,
to their point, even though we're like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. If you really truly can't find anything else like that, they have the monopoly on it, So I think once you get to a certain point and your stuff becomes recognizable, I think that's when people are like, well, I can really just charge whatever. And people feel like they don't know you can get it custom made somewhere else or recreated. So
yeah. And the other thing I learned too with the furniture industry is a lot of these big companies like a CB2, a Crate and Barrel, West Elm, they all use the same warehouses. So it really is all the same furniture, but they just have their own brand names on them. And a lot of those companies are also owned by they're under the same umbrella. Yeah. But I ordered something from Burke Decor recently, which I thought had zero affiliation with like a Pottery Barn or Crate and Barrel. And when I called, they were like, well, it's coming out of the same warehouse as CB2, Crate and Barrel, Pottery Barn.
And they charge so much different pricing.
The pricing is totally different. Yeah. So one of the things that I learned with the reverse imaging tip was like you can reverse image. I was looking for a concrete table. You can reverse image a concrete table. Pottery Barn, West Elm, CB2.
It's all the same one.
Yes. They'll all have different names for that table. But when you reverse image it, it's actually like a 4-hands table that you can get at 12 different retailers, but the prices and the names are totally different at each retailer.
Yeah.
So you think you're looking at a different table, you're not. You're actually, they have just renamed it with their own name and then put their own price tag on it. And it's all coming from the exact same warehouse.
No, it's true. And most people don't realize that. There was a TikTok I saw a while back with this guy that got all this restoration hardware stuff for his backyard. And he was like, I just got it directly from the manufacturer and it was like 70% of the price.
Yeah.
And
isn't that wild?
But it's the same thing. It just doesn't have the label.
Exactly. It's crazy. You really, like, if you have the time to kind of dig, you really can find the best deals on stuff like that. And a lot of those companies won't charge you for shipping. So if you can, do your homework and research where that specific table or couch or whatever you're looking for is from and who has the best price, who's not going to charge you for shipping, who does an introductory discount code. It's a great way to source pieces for a little bit less too.
Yeah. And I think too that kind of goes back to saying you're going to design your best home in time.
Yes.
If you're just like, oh my gosh, I've got to have this right now and you buy it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great for the store and everything. But then, you don't know what you're going to come across, at the thrift shop or just somewhere else.
Yeah. Buyer's remorse.
Yeah. It's better to wait it out, weigh all your options, see if you really love it and then commit. I would say, especially for larger pieces like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think tastes change too over time. Like my house has evolved like crazy. This house that we're in now is a completely different style from our little starter home that we had. Our starter home was like very cozy and much more traditional. And this house, I was like, I want clean lines. I want very modern. I want airy. And it's like just totally the opposite of what I had.
Yeah.
And who knows, in 10 years from now, I might want something totally different again.
Different. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes it comes from finding new designers or like creators online, because that's even me within the last couple years. Like, for example, one I just fell in love with was Chris Loves Julia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love their stuff.
Lone Fox Home. I don't know if you follow him. Yeah. Okay. So just those like old world kind of like cozy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to live in your house.
Yeah.
It looks so comfy.
I know. And Chris Loves Julia, they do a lot of like really dark, moody paint colors, which when you look at it on a, you know, a swab or a chip, like you would probably think,
you get intimidated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It can make a room feel smaller, but they really know how to incorporate those paint colors into making it's still like the moody vibe, but the room looks so beautiful. And it's like all the pieces mesh so well with those darker paint colors. They've really inspired me to kind of go the more moody route. We're redoing our master bedroom, and that's something that I was like, I really want a room that's kind of like a little moodier and just a different vibe.
Yeah, that's so funny that you mentioned that, because literally yesterday they posted a fall tour of their house. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? They're in North Carolina. I emailed them and I was like, if you ever need a piece.
Oh, so
I'm also
smart.
in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So like.
They're in Raleigh, right?
I don't know. Maybe they'll get back to me. I have no idea.
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for you. That would be huge.
I know. That would be fun.
They actually were building a pool, and they are our inspiration for the pool.
That's funny.
Yeah, they built a pool in their backyard recently.
I love that.
And they shared all the details on like who they used, what coping they used, and like all the features the pool has. And I was very appreciative of that, because I also think social media, like a lot of these people post these things, but then they gatekeep the information. They won't even tell you the paint color. I'm like, well, why are you posting it? You know, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, you call yourself an influencer and you're here to provide inspiration, but then when you have garnered this following, you won't answer your own followers and say, this is where something's from. You know, like you see a lot of fashion influencers that have all these comments that say, where's your sweater from? And like the influencer won't respond to the comment. Yeah. I'm like, you have worked so hard to garner this audience, and this is why you're here.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like, you got to take care of your people. You know?
That's funny you mentioned that too. Like, right when I started out, you know, I was just so excited. I was looking at all these other local designers and all this stuff. And I remember I messaged her on Instagram, and I mean, obviously nobody has to get back to you in that capacity if they're asking for stuff, but I don't know what I asked, but I was just basically like, wow, what's your number one tip? Like, I love your stuff, whatever. I wasn't asking for a ton of info, but then I got this very like robotic, well, you need to just go look at my website. And you can, and I was like, oh.
That's a turn off.
Yeah, so then now that has always stuck with me, like years later. And whenever I have somebody that's like, I just want to paint this thing, what do you suggest? I'm never one to be like, well, you can go look at my whatever, or you can go look it up on here. I'm like, I'll take the time to message back and say, you know what, here, I would love to help you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's honestly, I don't understand it. And I see a lot of interior designers kind of go that route. They really want to gatekeep. And I think they do that because they think, you know, this is their business and they make money by providing, you know, that service, which I get. But at the same time, like, how much money are you going to make off of giving somebody a paint color? Yeah. You know, I mean, come on. Like, they're not trying to recreate the whole room. They just like the color of the wall.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then oftentimes, too, you do that and the people see what kind of person you are, and then they're more apt to want something from you in the future, too. Yeah. You know, like that one person, I was turned off a little bit of their stuff after that, because I'm like, well, you don't want to get too high and mighty either. Right. You know, obviously you're not under any pressure to give away every single business secret and every single whatever, but just somebody with like a nice comment. Sure. You know,
Yeah, I always try to be as helpful as possible. And we've talked about this on previous episodes, but I have always made sure to keep my DMs as a part of my job. I know a lot of people outsource DMs, and either they won't answer them because they're overwhelmed by how many they get, or they outsource it to an assistant. And that's something that I have been like, no, this is my job. Right. This is my page. Like, I want to keep that relationship directly between my followers and me. Yeah. And so I, you know, spend a portion of every single day going through DMs and trying to be helpful and answering them.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does. I can't tell you how many people reply back and they're like, wow, you're one of the only influencers who's ever responded to me. Like, thank you so much, which is so mind-blowing to me because I'm like, what do you mean people aren't responding to you? I don't get that.
That's been me a couple times. There's like influencers I like, and then I'll message and be like, oh, I think you should choose a outfit, blah, blah, blah. And then I look back and I'm like, they've literally never responded to me and this is embarrassing. So I'm like, not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely, I think just in my business in particular, my definition of luxury is personalization.
Yeah.
Bespoke, personalized things like that. Just connecting one-on-one and being able to completely customize an experience.
Yeah.
That's like the height of luxury to me.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you walk into somebody's home and it's super unique and like true to them. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's just a totally different vibe when you walk into somebody's house and they've really poured their heart and soul into like all the little details.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially in this day and age, you don't really have a lot of places that still do things like that. You know, just a complete bespoke experience of, you know, you're not just a number or some random client here, you know, take this thing I have. It's, okay, what really would be true to you and let's make it happen together. Yeah. Because that's a much more memorable experience and people are really willing to pay for that.
I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, even myself too, like I'm way more interested in companies that offer a unique experience like that. Yes. You know, even for example, Le Labo, I'm sure you know them. Yeah, I went in the shop in Atlanta a few weeks ago and I was looking at all these perfumes and just the way they took the time to like explain each one to you and say when they bottle it, they print your name on it when it was created. I'm like, that's just so memorable. Yes. You know, like just those small touches, that's really luxury to me.
I would agree. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, we talk a lot about wellness on this podcast, so I would love to hear how you prioritize self-care while also balancing being a mom and running a business. You obviously have a lot of moving parts and it's very busy. Yeah. So what are your self-care routines?
You know, I would say a lot of it just boils down to I think I could go off on a soapbox, but in capitalism, it's very much self-care means go spend money on doing your nails and your hair and your eyelashes, and that's supposed to be what a woman's self-care routine is. But to me, I've learned over the past couple of years, self-care is a lot of caring for your mental health and emotions. And, you know, if I'm feeling overwhelmed or something, the traditional way would be like, oh, we'll just go buy a latte, go get your nails done, go, you know, relax and take a bubble bath because that's self-care, you know. But I think I've learned a lot of it is journaling or figuring out my emotions, taking some time to just be alone for a while. And, you know, you just feel so much better after those type of meditative things. Yes. Rather than just spending money and, you know, trying to chase, you know, oh, I should want to do this and go to the spa and do this, but I'm not feeling better. You know, I think a much more restorative practice is just meditation or even exercise and you know, but I do think especially when you have kids, like it's absolutely crucial to take that time for yourself because I mean you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to be so intentional with your time when you have kids too and really figure out how to carve out time for that. Like something that I figured out was, you know, my kid doesn't wake up until 8:30 in the morning. If I can get up and at 6:30, go to the gym, have my cup of coffee, have time to journal. Maybe I do a 5-10 minute meditation on the Peloton app. Maybe it's just a walk outside by myself. Like I don't even take the dog anymore. She's probably like, what the heck? But I'm like, no, this is my time. And so by the time he wakes up, like I have filled my cup all the way up. Yeah, exactly. And I'm so ready to go for the day. And I'm like, I'm not feeling stressed. I've just put so much time and like thoughtfulness into taking care of me. Yeah. And it doesn't take any time away from my husband or Liam and our time together because both of them like to sleep in. So, you know, I'm a big morning person. And so by the time they're awake, like I've already done it. Exactly. So it's the best.
Yeah. You kind of just have to figure out a routine. I think that works for you and where it fits within your day. Cause I also think people get so caught up in how busy the day is. And if they don't wake up early, you know, it's like you wake up and it's a rat race to make lunch, make breakfast, get your kid to school,
it starts
go
the
to
day
the
off
office.
on the wrong foot when it's like
it really
that.
does.
Yeah. And then I will say, sometimes it is fun to go to the spa because Tosca, I was just at her spa like 2 weeks ago. Oh, for my award show, I went there and I got the red carpet facial.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that she was going to be on your show, I'm like fangirling.
She's amazing. The facial bar is like one of the best inventions ever.
It is.
You can just pop in, it doesn't have to be a full 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you did you do the $30 brightening peel add-on?
No, but I listened to the show with her and I'm like, I'm going to have to do that next time.
Yes. Next time you go, take this advice from me. It is such a game changer.
Yeah.
$30, add it on to any of the facial bar facials, and like your skin will literally be so dewy and glowy and beautiful for the next 10 days.
Yeah.
Like no makeup needed.
Yeah. No, she's just a big inspiration to me too.
Yeah.
Like I just love women entrepreneurs in general. I love when women, but
me too.
Yeah. But when I was there the other week, she was behind the counter and I was like telling my husband, cause he was there. I'm like, that's Tosca. I'm like, I don't want to say anything and be weird, but she's so cool.
Oh, you should say hi to her. She's the sweetest person.
For sure. Self-care. Definitely necessary, especially when you have a business.
Absolutely.
Because it can be easy to just pour everything into that. And then at the end of the day, you're like, I've had no time for myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Holly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was a great conversation. If you guys are looking to repurpose some furniture, reach out to Holly.
Yeah. Find me on Instagram, Rosemary Mill Design.
Sounds good. See you next week.